They gave my promotion to the CEO's niece. 2 weeks in the job and she didn't even know how to run an inventory report. So I quit and took the backbone of the company with me. If you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or flat out disrespected, this one's for you. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your own revenge story in the comments. Justice isn't just sweet, it's strategic. Let's get into it.
My name's Dana Morales. I'm 29, and until 3 months ago, I was the operations lead at a boutique high-end furniture company in Chicago. Not flashy, but important. The kind of place where a single missing leg screw on a $7,000 coffee table could set off a domino effect of angry interior designers and flaming Yelp reviews. I didn't grow up with much. South Side born and raised, my mom worked 2 nursing shifts back-to-back, and my dad bounced between cab driving and warehouse gigs. I learned early that showing up, being dependable, and keeping my head down would at least get you a shot at stability. That mindset carried me into adulthood. I paid my own way through community college while working full-time at a shipping center, got my logistics certification on the side, and when I finally landed an entry-level role at Luxform Living, my now former employer, I thought I was finally entering the phase of my life where hard work paid off. I started at the bottom, inventory, then fulfillment, then back-end logistics. I didn't complain when I had to clean up messes that weren't mine, or when someone else took credit for my quick fix spreadsheet that saved us $40K in Q4 freight costs. I kept showing up, kept proving myself. Within 2 years, I had built out a custom internal tool that automated 80% of our warehouse and delivery coordination. I trained new hires, smoothed over vendor relationships, and even implemented a returns tracking protocol that cut losses by 40%. But what did they call me? Reliable Dana. The dependable one. The fixer. The one who'd stay late when no one else would. The one who brought cupcakes on Fridays and remembered everyone's birthday. The one who kept everyone else's disasters from spiraling into missed deadlines and customer refunds. And apparently, the one too valuable in her role to ever be promoted out of it. I left that meeting in a daze. My feet carried me back to my desk, but my mind stayed stuck in that moment. Olivia's name, her name, being attached to the job I had fought for, the job I had carved out of sheer will and unpaid overtime. They said I was overqualified. They said I was too essential to be moved. But what they meant was I wasn't connected. I didn't have the bloodline or brunch photos to earn a seat at their table. For the next few days, I floated through the office like a ghost. People congratulated Olivia with forced smiles. I overheard her telling someone she totally didn't expect it. I believed her, because if she had, she would have at least pretended to take the training seriously. She stopped doing actual work. Her Slack status was always in a meeting, but somehow her desk stayed suspiciously tidy. Reports that used to land in my inbox now went to her and bounced back full of mistakes. I quietly fixed them for a while. One Friday, I stayed late, again, only to overhear her in the break room laughing about how operations basically run themselves now. I stood there for a solid 10 seconds, frozen, until I turned around and walked out. I didn't even bother grabbing my leftovers from the fridge. What cut deepest wasn't just the betrayal. It was the slow realization that all my work, years of it, was being used as a stepping stone for someone who never earned it. And management? They leaned into it. Olivia was fresh, polished, marketable. She looked great on LinkedIn banners and company culture posts. I was the one behind the curtain pulling the levers, but she was the one smiling on stage. The kicker? My name was still listed on the internal systems as warehouse support. Not lead, not manager, not even senior coordinator, just support. I went home that night, sat in my apartment, surrounded by the IKEA bookshelves I assembled myself, and stared at my laptop. I opened the deck I had pitched for the regional ops role, the same one that had been ghosted for months. 12 pages of market expansion modeling, cost breakdowns, and projected ROI. It even had my initials watermarked on the footer. I scrolled to the bottom where I'd written, "Proposed by Dana Morales, Q4 Strategy Lead." It stung. They didn't just give Olivia the job. They gave her my vision, dressed up in a different blazer. And the worst part? I had taught her. Everything she knew, what little she managed to absorb, came from me. She sat beside me with that notepad, doodling during onboarding, while I explained warehouse zones and route batching. At first, I thought she was overwhelmed. Now I realize she was just biding time, waiting until someone higher up decided she'd look better with a title next to her name than I ever would. That weekend, I visited my parents. My dad, a retired mechanic, looked at me and said, "You look tired, kid." I shrugged and told him work was fine, but he wasn't buying it. He passed me a beer, and we sat in the garage, surrounded by half-built tool cabinets and dust. He didn't say much after that, but I think that silence gave me more clarity than any company feedback ever had. Because in that moment, I knew I was done being the foundation for other people's ladders. I didn't make a scene. I didn't slam doors or send dramatic goodbye emails. That's not my style. I believe in clean exits, precise, deliberate, irreversible. So I moved in silence. Every late night I stayed at the office after Olivia clocked out early became my groundwork. I'd sit there, sipping burnt coffee from a chipped mug, mapping out workflows no one else understood. I had created most of them anyway. I cataloged everything: vendor tiers, seasonal surge maps, reorder thresholds, breakage data by product line, even which freight carriers gave real-time updates versus those who fudged ETAs to protect SLAs. Every single detail. And I moved it all out of the company's ecosystem. I wasn't stealing. I was taking what I had created on my own time, with my own tools, during unpaid hours when no one else cared. What they had was a shell. What I kept was the engine. My efficiency tool, the one that automated multi-region warehouse routing based on real-time inventory, distance, and carrier performance, was the crown jewel. I'd coded it in Python and layered it with a no-frills interface. No one else in the company even knew how it worked. They just liked that orders magically stopped getting lost. When I first launched it internally, I was told it was a neat idea and got a Starbucks gift card for my efforts. So I made it mine. I transferred the codebase to a private Git repository, updated the backend keys, and built out a new, improved version, streamlined, faster, with plug-and-play API support. I also filed the IP documentation and secured the copyright. Retroactively, sure, but thoroughly. Meanwhile, I incorporated a sole proprietorship, Anchor Ops Consulting. I reached out to 2 vendors I trusted, the ones I had rescued when their shipments were caught in customs and the company threatened to cut them off. I told them I was starting something new, something independent. I didn't ask for favors. I didn't beg. I just laid out what I could offer. Both signed contracts within 10 days. Then came the resignation. 2 printed pages, crisp formatting, bullet points, no room for interpretation. I placed it neatly on my manager's desk, looked him in the eye, and said, "Thanks for everything." He blinked, clearly unsure how to respond. I didn't wait. I turned, walked out, and never looked back. My final 2 weeks were immaculate. I trained the person replacing me, not Olivia, of course, and provided just enough documentation to keep things technically afloat. I smiled at every coworker who stopped by my desk with questions I had answered 100 times before. I was polite, efficient, and precise. But inside, I was already gone. At night, I built out my branding. Anchor Ops wasn't going to be another generic consultancy with vague promises. I focused on boutique firms, high-ticket retailers with fragile logistics infrastructures and big egos, the kind who thought a WMS was a flavor of protein powder. I built my pitch deck, populated my website, and prepared demo videos showing what Anchor Ops could do with live case simulations. I hired a freelance copywriter to fine-tune the messaging, invested in sharp, minimalist branding. No frills, just competence. By the time my last Friday rolled around, I had 3 consultations lined up and a working prototype of the Anchor Ops platform already being tested by a trial client. On the way out, Olivia passed me in the hallway. She didn't say anything, just offered a little wave and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I nodded once. If she thought she had won, I wasn't about to correct her. Because the game she thought she was playing, I'd already finished it. I'd moved on to a new board entirely, where I set the rules, chose the pieces, and controlled the tempo. They could keep their titles. I had built something better. Leverage. The first domino fell quietly. A short text from a warehouse lead I trusted. "Hey, the routing tool's not working. Did they switch access?" No, they hadn't, because there was nothing to switch. The access was mine. Always had been. I didn't respond. By day 3, the floodgates opened. Order fulfillment was off by thousands of units. Packages were being sent to the wrong zip codes, some as far as cross-country misroutes. 2-day delivery windows became 5-day frustrations. Clients started posting complaints on LinkedIn, the kind that tag executives, the kind that draw attention. Then came the internal panic. Someone from my old department forwarded me a mass email from senior ops. "Urgent, all regional leads, please report any anomalies in routing and fulfillment data ASA." Anomalies? No, this wasn't a glitch. This was the scaffolding giving way after they yanked out the one person holding it all together. I didn't gloat. I didn't even smile. What I felt was calm, like watching a slow-motion car crash from a safe distance. Then, midweek, a message hit my inbox from HR. "We'd like to discuss a possible contractor role to help stabilize operations during this transitional phase." Transitional phase? That's corporate for "we messed up and now we need you." I didn't reply. Because while their systems were imploding, mine were thriving. Anchor Ops was no longer just a deck and a name. It was real, alive, breathing, expanding. The furniture distributor in St. Louis had already cut costs by 12% in the first 10 days of working with me. They were calling it their Q3 miracle. The Austin startup, they gave me full control over logistics design before their product launch. In return, they went from prototype to nationwide delivery in under 3 weeks. Their founder sent me a thank you basket with imported wine and a handwritten card that ended with, "We don't know how we did this without you." Every vendor I had worked with at my previous company knew who had made their shipments run like clockwork, and they didn't hesitate to refer me. It turns out, reliability becomes a currency when everyone else is burning bridges. Back at the old company, Olivia was now in charge, at least in name, but names don't keep packages moving or supply chains from imploding. From what I heard through the grapevine, she had called 3 emergency meetings that week, none with clear agendas. She asked questions like, "How do we escalate this to the vendors?" And "Can we outsource the routing?" She didn't understand that the routing was the vendors. It was the system. It was me. By week 2, they were scrambling. A client threatened to pull their contract. Another issued a formal complaint. The VP who once invited Olivia into strategy meetings was suddenly unreachable. And all the while, I was setting boundaries I never had before. 4-day work weeks, hard stops at 5 p.m., no Slack messages after dinner. I rediscovered sunlight. I read books without falling asleep on page 3. I cooked meals that didn't come from a takeout box. More than that, I started being respected, not for being the person who could handle it, but for being the person who built systems so good they spoke for themselves. One morning, I got an email from a senior executive I hadn't heard from in months. It simply said, "We didn't realize how much of the system was built on your expertise. Would love to reconnect if you're open to it." I didn't open it. I just archived it. You see, when you've been overlooked long enough, there's something deeply satisfying about becoming undeniable. Not through revenge, not through sabotage, but by outgrowing the environment that refused to recognize your worth. Their chaos was no longer my concern. I had moved on. And they were still trying to find the reset button on a machine they never understood. I never replied to HR. Not when they first reached out, not when they followed up, not even when they hinted, subtly of course, that a short-term consultant fee was negotiable. Instead, I sent one final message. Not to HR, but to the person who once told me I was too reliable to lose. Thanks for the inspiration. Sincerely, your former too reliable employee. I didn't expect a reply. I didn't need one. The silence said enough. 6 weeks after I left, Olivia was gone too. Not with a press release or a handoff memo, just gone. No LinkedIn update, no warm farewell email, just a quiet vanishing act that matched the way she arrived, on someone else's coattails. From what I heard, she'd spent the final few weeks attempting to stitch the department back together with outdated spreadsheets and vendor guesswork. There were rumors of late-night meetings with IT, scrambling attempts to recreate the custom routing logic that had once run behind the scenes. But code isn't copied from a screenshot, and relationships don't rebuild themselves in panic mode. They didn't just lose a tool when I left, they lost the context, the nuances, the person who knew why things worked, not just how. The regional operations manager role, the one I had designed, built, and proposed, still open. They renamed it twice, hoping the new title would attract someone who could magically reverse the damage. But titles don't solve systems. The truth is, most companies aren't brought down by villains, they're undone by arrogance. Arrogance that believes experience is interchangeable, that loyalty is replaceable, that knowledge is stored in shared drives instead of people's minds. But knowledge doesn't live in folders. It lives in decisions made under pressure, in vendor calls at 9 p.m., in workarounds you don't even realize you've created until you're gone and the machine stalls. It lives in the glue people, the ones who don't chase credit but carry weight. And I had been one of those people, quietly, efficiently, invisibly holding it all together, until I stopped. Now, I had a team of my own, small, tight-knit, hand-picked. Every one of them knew the feeling of being underestimated. Every one of them had something to prove. And we weren't fixing broken systems anymore. We were building better ones, from scratch, with clients who asked how they could support, not how much they could extract. I even had the luxury of choosing who not to work with. When a Fortune 500 retailer reached out, I recognized the name instantly, one of our old competitors. They offered a monthly retainer that my old salary looked like lunch money. But they also had a reputation for chewing up vendors and ghosting consultants. I declined with one sentence: "We're not a fit for your culture." Because once you've walked through fire, you stop entertaining sparks. I kept tabs on the old company, now and then, not out of bitterness, just curiosity. They cycled through 2 more interim ops leads. Neither lasted longer than a quarter. KPIs were down, a major client jumped ship, publicly citing persistent logistical issues. The irony? They finally posted the exact role I had pitched in my original 12-page proposal, word for word. Except now it reported directly to the CEO and came with a desperate tone disguised as urgent opportunity. I didn't apply. I didn't send a snarky message. I didn't even tell my team about it, because some wins don't require witnesses. Sometimes the real revenge isn't proving them wrong, it's knowing you were always right, and then living like it. I had built something that couldn't be stolen, copied, or passed off to a niece with a good smile and 0 skills. What I carried wasn't a job, it was expertise, discipline, and hard-won intuition. And they couldn't replace that. Not with a title, not with a hiring spree, not with a desperate email. They could try, but they'd always be 2 steps behind, because I had already moved on, and they were still drowning in the waters I once kept calm. The truth is, I never wanted applause. I didn't need a corner office or a title on a door. What I wanted was to do good work, smart, meaningful work, and to be valued for it. But when respect is replaced with convenience, when effort is repaid with disregard, the best thing you can do isn't to argue. It's to exit, quietly, completely. Because absence has a weight. It lingers. It echoes through broken systems and missed deadlines, through strategy decks no one else can explain, through silence in meetings once held together by your voice. Some people only recognize your value when it's no longer available. And that's fine. Let them. Because while they're busy trying to reconstruct what they took for granted, you'll already be somewhere better, building, thriving, choosing who gets your energy. So if they ever call you too reliable, smile. It means they never thought you'd leave. And when you do, don't slam the door. Just let it close behind you. That sound is louder than any goodbye.
If you loved that quiet revenge, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and tell me, what's the most satisfying, they didn't see it coming moment you've ever pulled off? I read every comment. Until next time, stay smart, stay strategic, and never let them call you too reliable again.